Hello, everyone. Hi, Koray. How are you doing today?
Hello, and I'm really great actually. Still, I am recovering from my sunburn. I can tell because I visited the south of the Turkey because I'm moving into the Kuşadası. Many SEOs already know that, and they are planning to come to the Kuşadası for visiting me. And besides that, I just try to come to myself. Let's say.
That is good. That is good. It was also kind of, last weekend. It was also extremely hot in the Netherlands. We had a temperature over 33 degrees, which is extreme. I would say, which is extreme.
Yeah, it is just the beginning degree in Turkey.
So it's right now over 40, right?
Yeah, in the south of Turkey, definitely. It goes over 40, and in the southeast, it goes like 46, 47 sometimes. And there is also humidity too. So
yeah, humidity as well.
It was really hard. Yeah, I visited the Ephesus, the ancient city, and there is no any kinds of cover from the sun because everywhere is actually already collapsed. And it's like I want to visit that street, I want to see the theater, but at the same time maybe I should not because I want to leave tomorrow too. You do this type of calculations when you're there.
Yeah, I could imagine. Okay, welcome everyone to the 11th episode of the SERPs of the Week podcast, where we discuss what goes into ranking higher for a specific search term. I'm your host, Alex Tachalova, and let me introduce you to today's podcast guest, Koray Gübür. Koray, welcome to the show. Let me make a quick introduction, and then we can move to the main question. Okay. So, Koray, the SEO founder of Holistic SEO and Digital, and he performs SEO A/B tests regularly to understand the Google, Microsoft, Bing, and Yandex as well, like search engines, algorithms, and internal agenda. So Koray uses data science to understand the custom click curves and baby search engine algorithms decision trees. So Koray worked with more than 700 companies for the SEO projects in 2015. What was the most remarkable company you ever worked with?
In terms of, if you talk about the globalization or the, let's say, big companies here, we can actually count many. Like some of them are in India, but some of them are in the past. So it's safe to say. Let's say NordVPN might be one of them, and Zomato might be one of them, and also a little bit Thomas Nat, we can tell. A little bit Payoneer, and also many others too.
Well, you're kind of, basically, for instance, Payoneer, I just use it for companies. So, all of them are very, very familiar to digital marketers, I think.
Yeah.
More or less, it's kind of on our agenda, I would say.
Yeah, of course. And usually, actually, for these companies, when they come to me, they usually come for training rather than an always on actually project. Some of them are different, of course. With some of them, we are working like over actually nearly 2 years. And with some others too, we worked really for a long time, like the competitors of the Asana or Trello. I can give the name, but they are already in the case studies anyway, like Canva, for instance.
Oh, Canva, nice. Yeah. They used to be our clients as well.
Yeah, and when we work with these companies, we usually try to a little bit upgrade their mindset and try to teach our methodologies. And it is easier for me too, because we always have strict, strong NDAs, which means that I am able to also share the information in a free way, because I know that it will be inside them, for them, and it will be benefiting for them as well. But when it comes to the size of the companies, I believe working with the medium-sized companies is way much harder than the large size companies actually, or the small companies too, because when it comes to that, you need to create lots of bridges so that they can be successful. And it's not just training, sharing, or creating a strategy. You also deep dive into the many holes that they have. They even don't know that. Because I see SEOs always as a business developer, because you are able to work with every competitor, but they are not. They don't know who is their competitor, but you know it. So you know who is doing what, in what way. And it helps you to actually fill the holes in their business strategies or the team management. So it's also one of the things that we do during these times.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, I have to say that also most probably when it comes to medium-sized companies,
it's harder, but it's also more rewarding. I
yes, So that is what I wanted to say as well, because you can see actually how things are implementing, right? So rather than you just kind of give them, some guidance, or you spend your budget, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then they might or might not, right? We've recently actually had a conversation with my good friend, one of my good friends, and he told me that they started working with one very big company, right? And they're a content marketing agency. And basically they've been working together for more than 1 year. They produced more than, I don't know, like 30, 50 content pieces. And none of them has been published yet.
Yeah,
And they're, right, paying for their work.
I remember.
And that is, whenever basically, and they have kind of, each few months they have conversations about, when do you plan? And it's like, what, we have a very solid process of kind of validation this, and then we need to wait for that, and then we need to wait for that.
Yeah. I even remember that once actually one developer just pinged me over Asana and he was telling that this has been done. The problem is that I opened the task like 186 days ago and I was like, wow, thanks for doing that. Because we
It's no
already,
longer valid, right?
yeah, but I actually like this thing because these type of obstacles create the difference between successful and the failing SEOs. Because if you just tell that, okay, this is my job is just telling these things and waiting, then probably you won't be able to be that much successful. But at the same time, in SEO we have lots of different verticals. Maybe the technical SEO is too slow, but you can go other sections that you can control more. And let's say they don't publish articles, let's say they don't also do the technical SEO tasks in a really fast way, then you can go with the actual, let's say, the backlink side or branding side, because you control that area with 100% power. You can publish lots of articles, you can manage the social media.
I would raise a question over there. I'll tell
Okay.
you the following. Since I'm the person that is actually from a link building side, right? I have to say that we really experience a lot of problems with our clients, just because even though, right, we can build those links, right? And we don't really need anyone in order to execute it, which is brilliant, actually. We don't really need to have NDAs or something like that, which is also brilliant, just because what we do, right? We just take their pages, right? Anyone can build a link to their page. Whenever, our clients coming to us, like, we need to sign an NDA or something like that. I was like, man, the issue that anyone can build a link to this or that page, right? So,
You can
there is
always
no
tell that.
secret sign beside that. You don't
You
really
can
give me
always,
any. Yeah.
you can always tell that it wasn't me, for instance. And a few times actually I did that too, because some companies, especially big companies in Turkey too, and in the let's say international market as well, they are so sensitive about the words that have been used for defining them. So let's say someone actually mentions something, we can always tell that it is not under our control, sorry. Or usually I try to actually work with the key person in these companies. Like if something has to be done, I always go to the CEO, to be honest, most of the time. And I talk to the CEO gives me the authority, then I handle the tasks. Or I just keep all the SEO circle in the company so small so that the decision line can be shorter and more direct. Even if something goes wrong, we can fix it in a really quick way too. But it requires understanding the humans and having a strong actual communication skill there, because being friends with everyone is not that easy. For instance,
No. Yeah, but circling back to backlinks, right, and being 100% independent when you do that, the problem that you are still dependent on page SEO, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so you can't really deliver results. If you kind of perform on the number of links, that's one thing, right? But that is not the case, right? Because links, they are meant for something, right?
Definitely. And also there's always questions for long-term return of investment projection, for instance, what will be the situation is, and etc. The worst part is that a page rank, it is hard to calculate or hard to imitate or to guess. And since there is no visualization or a concrete graph, it is hard to explain the big companies, because if the company has really good SEO culture, it is easy, but usually they don't have. I know many CEOs that actually I trained, like I was explaining them the most basic concepts to demonstrate them that actually, look, the benefit of these things are long term, and we will actually add these factors to make it even more efficient during the time. they were usually being convinced, but at the same time, I understand them too, because they go to the holding and they tell that we spent this money for this, and someone asked that. I remember once I actually worked with someone with the British dynasty. He lives in the Dubai, and he is like at the 6th or the 5th order in the throne. So I'm sure that he won't be the king, but still one of the king candidates. Anyway, and
someone in the line, right?
Yeah, he's at the backside, while still he's in the line.
But it's better to be at the backside of that line rather than excluded absolutely like me and you, right? No chance to be even kind of considered.
There is no chance of assassination, at least. So there are others before you. And at the same time, he asked the CEO that you are spending this amount of money for just coffee. Why is it that? And then I understood that actually links even might be less important than the coffee, because from the investor points of view, coffee spending is more important than the links, for instance. And it's hard to explain them that, look, we can actually buy more coffee thanks to these links. So it's hard to create that perception in their minds, I can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I guess maybe, right, that's the reason why you started to learn people SEO, right? So you kind of started from explaining that to key decision makers, right?
Yeah, that's why.
Right?
Yeah, that's why I directly go to the key decision maker. And when it comes to the development team, I go to the development team leader or the CTO. Yeah, so usually CEO, CMO, and CTO. If you're able to have a solid structure with these three, rest will be really, really easy for anything else. And most of the time, most case studies that we have, it is coming from these type of connections, because it's hard to train like 20 people of team directly. Some of them understand quickly, some of them don't understand quickly. But if you have the key decision maker together with you, everything goes way much smoother and easier.
Yeah, absolutely. But when it comes to learning SEO, what are the best ways of learning SEO these days? Because there are so many information, right? So if you have, let's imagine someone, right, really kind of, wants to start a journey, right? So what will be your recommendation?
So there are some disadvantages there, because I believe experience is the teacher of all things. And in SEO, the most hurricane years, it is a little bit actually past. For instance, the Panda updates, Penguin updates, or the Phantom updates, the first core updates, many other quality updates, and the spam updates. These are already past, which means that if you start just today, you are not able to experience these things as before anymore. For instance, the core updates in 2020, they were the strongest core updates that ever happened. So if you're able to see them and surf on the SERP during these updates, it makes you unique. So if you just start today, it means that you don't have that experience, and unfortunately you can't have it anymore as well, which is one of the disadvantages. And another problem is that SEO, before it was like a kind of capsule, but right now it is like another encyclopedia, to be honest, because from technical SEO to do, let's say, local SEO or semantic SEO especially, everything is too different from each other, and you should choose which one do you want to focus on first, because you might not be able to learn all of them together. In my situation, I am lucky, and that's why I call my company Holistic SEO, because we do all these things at the same time. But it is a little bit because of my obsession maybe with the SEO or the, let's say, love or the passion. But at the same time, I was lucky. I have started from the casino industry, from the black hat industries. And
for sure.
We had
that is a very unique, actually, well, what I also noted that whenever you talk with people from that niches, right, like casino, more or less, I would say halfly legal, I would say, because not each and every country kind of legalized, right?
If it comes to the legalization of these things, Turkey is my favorite, because in Turkey, people were sending each other to the jail because it's completely illegal. And it means that I started to learn that SEO is not just about SERP, because, for instance, once we have sent actually 30 million requests to the competitor for DDoS attack, and the website actually benefited it because of the past experiences. Basically, DDoS attacks on that timeline unfortunately, it was working for higher rankings because I believe Google assumed that these are real traffic, and due to the instant popularity increase, they increased the traffic. But we were also lucky because their web servers were not that much strong. So after 30 million hits, they are just collapsed. So then our PBM started to rank higher. So when you experience these type of things, you have always a natural advantage in the SEO, to be honest, because you are able to stay, let's say, with the cold blood. Because during the core, for instance, during the medic update, we lost 3,000 websites and lots of money. So once you experience this, the next update won't scare you that much because you always know that any website is not permanent. They all will be.
Yeah, for sure. It's there is no such thing as evergreen success, most probably.
Yeah, there is
because a lot of people, like, they expect that if, and I think, when it comes to any, and for sure when it comes to SEO, right? Whenever you do things in a particular way, right? You kind of have a workflow, you kind of follow it, and it's more or less the same workflow, right, that the rest of other websites in your niche are kind of following. Yes, you're creating kind of a positive trend, but you can't really grow faster, right, then this pattern is kind of, this pattern is kind of blocking you, I would say, in some way.
Yeah.
So it's always the main problem is kind of how you can it's quite easy to kind of go from 0 to 1,000, then maybe from 1,000 to 10,000. But the question is how to get from 10,000 to 100,000, right?
That's
with the same pace.
Yes, and that section also requires a business development because the most businesses, when they want to do the SEO, their business model is not compatible with the queries that they are trying to rank for. For instance, if you are providing just temporary car insurance, yes, maybe we can try to rank for the temporary car insurance, one-day insurance, daily insurance, or many of them, 1 week, 1 month, or even four hours of insurance, we can rank for. But at the same time, if you have a competitor that also provides other types of insurances, and not just temporary, but other types of car insurance coverages as well, it will always have a natural advantage. Because it will be able to talk to the more users. It will be able to gather more links, more ranking signals, quality signals, popularity signals.
Topical authority, right?
Yes, and as a small website there, or small node in their link graph and also their query network, your job is actually harder there. So that's why actually that requires going from 10,000 to the 100,000. It a little bit requires business development. For instance, when it comes to the car rental business, if I have a client from the car rental business, I am not directly tell them that, look, we will be ranking for a location and the car rental queries, certain. But at the same time, you will need to rank for the beaches. You will need to rank for the hotels. You will need to rank for airports because people will be renting cars for going there. And at the same time, you will need...
And you need to rank for all the keywords that are kind of, playing your trip too, right?
Definitely. And most important part is it's not just ranking. It is also creating partnership. You can go to the hotels and you can tell them that, look, if someone hires a car from me, I can recommend your hotel. But if someone rents a room from you, why don't you recommend my car rental business? And because I will be ranking for your name, it means that actually many people will be landing this page and I can send them to your competitor. So if you don't want to do that, just actually let's shake hands and we can actually be a kind of sales partner for each other. So it's not always just about SEO. It is about ranking for all these queries to make the website more authoritative and also creating another business model so that ranking for these also makes sense from monetization value as well. So that's why most businesses today, they don't have a proper business model for SEO, to be honest. They want to rank usually for 7 queries. Even link building campaigns, they have that problem because they usually want to rank for a few anchor text, that's it. But when the search engine looks at your website, they will need to see other types of anchor text, sometimes, let's say, even wrong anchor text, let's say, or sometimes I also tell people that, for instance, when you, let's say, disavow the links, it's not always about non-quality link. It's mainly about spammy link. Not every non-quality link is also spammy.
Yeah,
so sometimes to show the naturality of your link graph, sometimes you should actually have lower page rank pages who will links you as well to show the natural structure of the web. Imagine that you have links only from New York, let's say New York Times, Washington Post, but nothing else. it's not natural.
No, it's not. Yeah, but that is kind of the dream, I would say. Literally and I think that is the problem here, right? Because people, they mix up two things. they're kind of eggabite when I want to get a link just because it's kind of emotionally important for me, like kind of getting a link on Forbes, Washington Post, New York Times. It's not really about the link. It's about, some other things, right, that are kind of bringing me to the point that I'm so proud being featured there, right?
Yeah,
because this link is not going to change anything, right, in your site's future or something like that, right?
Yeah. And that's why actually Microsoft Bing also defines the page rank and the authority difference. It directly tells its own actually guideline that some links pass authority, some links pass page rank. So this is what actually they mean there as well. And if you're able to actually being featured in this type of resources, of course, it will be redefining your entity with a different type. For instance, if New York Times tells that your business is about X, you will be related to the X in a really strong way. And if you want to rank for the X, it's good. For instance, for one of the case studies that I published before, an e-commerce store, bookstore, bkmbook.com. For that one, for instance, they were doing regular press releases. I did not put this to the case study, by the way, and I did not explain this before too. There wasn't any link in the press releases, but since the company is big, it was being featured on many national news sites.
With kind of referring to this press release, most probably.
And to be able to create a relevance from brand to the topic, I was always actually mentioning the topic-related queries or the phrases around the brand name. And whenever I actually do that, actually, we were appearing in the, let's say, auto companies or related search terms or other types of sections as well. So even if there is no link, still, by mentioning your brand together with the targeted queries and creating these co-occurrences in a good way and natural way, that is actually helpful for increasing your relevance and rankability, because you need to justify your source for that specific query first.
Yeah, that is very true. I think that is the reason why, in my opinion, there are two types of links, I would say, right? So one type of link is more like kind of, placing SEO value, right, back to your website. And there are certain type of links that can also pass brand value besides SEO value, right?
Yeah.
So, because sometimes, right, the link per se might be not so good, right? Or not so, whatever it is, right? But the place where it's kind of put, or kind of the page itself, right? It's so relevant, then it's going to actually also help your brand, right? Grow in its kind of awareness, I would say, right?
Definitely. And also even the quality rater guidelines, they talk about the source reputation and author reputation. And for one of the checks there is actually what is the news coverage about the specific source. Once actually in Turkish language, many years ago, I have written a really long article about Google spam detection systems. It was about local SEO mainly. And I realized that actually one of the local business owners, he was being prosecuted with a really red crime, a really bad crime, basically. The thing here is that Google systems, even 3 years ago, they realized that specific person was the owner of that specific business, and they started to put the person's prison picture, like with the orange clothes, to their Google My Business or Google Business Profile panel on the search results. It was a direct algorithmic decision, for instance, and there is no link. They were not linking the website. They were just mentioning the business name, and there were pictures. And since they were mentioning the name and the person has been mentioned as the owner and the also manager of the business place, directly that prison picture started to appear in the Google Business Profile. And it was a huge problem for the business, of course. No one would buy something from.
Yeah, I could imagine. There is kind of a very strong association, I have to say.
Yeah, it is also started to happen because Google, a few times they had to rank some businesses higher just because of the scandalous things. Because A few times, restaurant owners, they have different type of scandals. I even know some restaurant owner beat his own customer directly in the restaurant, for instance. And it's a scandal, basically, because no one would like to see a bad
No
thing.
one would love to go to this restaurant, right?
Yeah, of course.
Or you're kind of, enjoying this kind of attacks, punishment.
Yeah. Funny thing is that during that time, I guess it was 2015 or the 16. The funny thing is that this became a major news in all the news, and all the news were mentioning the business name, and they were also linking to it, and it made the business place rank higher with the website and with the local SEO too, because there were mentions, there were traffic, and there were many other things about it.
So on Google Maps, for instance, they should have ranking high, right? Just because of this authority.
Definitely. Then the concept of actually annotation text, which is a text around the anchor text and a sentiment around the anchor text, then it started to become more important. And they started to get the connections. Even if there is no link, still they are able to create an information graph, and they're able to connect things to each other semantically and by creating a kind of distance or relevance. Nice picture.
Okay, let me quickly circle back, right, to to the search term, so you can kind of take a look and discuss it very briefly, right?
Yeah.
So we decided to take a look at the search term, how to learn SEO, right? Well, first question: did you expect to see, what was your expectations about the website that should appear here? Did you expect to see the same set of websites, or they were more or less the same?
So the thing here is that this is a half-to question. And by the way, I did not work on the query, to be honest. I will be working.
No problem. We can take a look right now. So, there is.
And the thing is that I would expect this type of websites for this type of a SERP and the query as well. But the thing is that if you want to compete for such a query for this type of sources, I would directly use actually a kind of exact match domain. But the thing is that for exact match domain, the important thing there is is the query template, but learn SEO, there is a predicate there, which is the learn section. And SEO is directly the context there, which means that actually I can directly use a learn SEO, let's say even a cheap extension would be directly helpful there. Or I can directly use a subdomain with an exact, let's say, matching subdomain as well. It will be also ranking there too. Today, even actually, I created a content brief for a really large topical map for that because I can tell the query too. It is famous birthdays. And when you look at the famous birthdays, there is an exact match domain there. It already has all the site-wide connections, which means query directly means the website. Plus, there is a knowledge panel about the website, but I need to outrank the person for his own brand name. So for these type of situations, actually, when you use, let's say, a subdomain with the exact match, let's say exact match subdomain, it will be really helpful and faster for you to rank in this area. But I am telling this by imagining that you have 0 page rank. So
yeah, for sure.
If we create a strategy here for a global company, with millions of clicks, then of course it's easy for us to rank there. But if you don't have anything yet, you are just buying the domain and planning to how to rank there, then yes, I will definitely use actually an exact match domain to be able to rank there. And I would not use the, let's say, how to section inside the exact match domain there. I will use it in the title at the homepage, and I will use how to structure data by creating unique images, for instance. And there are also some special forms. If you use how to structure data to be able to appearing in Google Assistant and also Google tablets, I guess, there are some forms that you need to fill. I would also fill them. And if I'm able to also being chosen by also the voice search algorithms, usually they choose the featured snippet, but none of the featured snippets actually appear 100% of the time. Even if I am able to actually being chosen 2% of the time for the voice search, I count it as the historical data. So which means that actually algorithms started to test the website, and I will definitely use the speakable structured data there together with the how to structured data too. And at the same time there, I am not surprised to see that these actual websites rank there. It is pretty normal because they are all actually topical authorities for this topic. Plus, they also, if we cluster all the users, and usually a search engine can cluster 3 things: web documents, queries, users. If you get query similarity, document similarity, and user similarity to cluster them all together, you will realize that actually similar users search similar queries and they go to the similar websites. And all these websites there, whether Search Engine Journal, Ahrefs, HubSpot, or others, they have lots of overlapping topics and overlapping users. And it makes search engine more confident because they know that user won't be harmed when they click one of these things there.
But I have a question about topical authority.
Okay.
For instance, right, HubSpot is bigger than SEMrush, right, in terms of, kind of have wider range of topics, just because if we circle back to our previous conversation about the business model, right, they are covering more, right, because they kind of, they're starting with, they have their own CMS, they have their own CRM, right, which means it covers more areas of digital and sales, right?
For instance,
and just kind of, to sum this up, while if we take Ahrefs or SEMrush, they are way more specific, right?
Yes.
So whenever we are going to if we take, all their pages or all their search queries, we will see that they kind of mention SEO way more, right? Most probably across all the web pages and documents that they have on their website. If we compare with HubSpot.
So in this
does it right now, right? So the question is, does it work as a competitive advantage, or it does work in a bit different way?
It is actually working for the advantage of the HubSpot at the same time, because in my Topical Authority course as well, and while I was actually structuring the methodology and the concept of a Topical Authority, I used one more concept, and I explained it in the course, not before. It is cost of the retrieval. So basically, if a search engine is able to satisfy more topics, more users, and more queries with a single website, it means that that website actually helps the search engine. It means that actually, if I need to demote this specific one website, it means that actually I am taking risk, because of this demotion in this area, if you actually demote this website in this topic, it will be affecting the other topic too, which means that in a sequential way, you will be demoting this website from many other topics at the same time. And if you do that, actually, you will need to be dealing with lots of other websites too. Being a kind of overall authority for multiple connected topics, and also languages too, it helps search engines to decrease the cost. Which one would you prefer? Crawling 20 million different websites for
and trying to understand whether it's legit or not, right? Because the problem here is kind of the same, like if we compare it with the real life, right? Would you prefer to work with one company, right, that covers that kind of a well-established company, well-known, that can actually help you with kind of different areas, right? Kind of covering, right, a lot of your needs at the same time, rather than working with individual vendors, right? That you are not so,
aggregators,
kind of, you don't really know them so well.
And actually aggregators usually have these type of advantages and also sometimes disadvantages too. Because, for instance, in the finance industry, if we talk about, let's say, the credit card application directly, most of the time, if you rank for the credit card application, rather than the content that you rank or write, and rather than the images that you put in the web page, the web components are more important. You will need certain input areas. You will need a form to fill. If you have an application Word, you will need actually a form to fill. And most of the time, aggregators don't have a form because they just have links and to affiliate links, basically.
They're kind of, they're basically working as kind of a destination that is kind of telling you where to go, like an airport for traffic.
This is actually a kind of, in lots of research papers or the patents, they call it actually concurrent composition score, which means that they actually concurrently create a composite SERPs, multiple SERPs, and they try to understand actually which SERP is better than the other. They can try SERP models like 6 aggregator, 4 vendor, or 1 aggregator, 9 vendor. Then they can check actually how the users behave. If user already goes to the vendor from the aggregator website, they will
then there is no point in aggregator, right?
They will directly rank the vendor there. That's why usually if I work with a finance industry website, whether if it is the affiliate and aggregator, I usually tell that if you are not a bank, try to be bank-like. You don't have to be a bank, but you can behave like a bank. It means that just put a form there, try to gather the leads and try to call them or create a kind of real business touch there. It will be really helpful to be able to actually classify it differently, because all the quality rater guidelines too, they will get these type of differences on that part as well. And in one of my case studies, it was about credit cards, credit calculation, and overall finance. And we were doing these too, because after a single core update, I guess it was the September 2020, as much as I can remember, entire actually rankings changed. And it happened again too, because these things have a loop. And that's why actually outranking HubSpot there is hard, because if search engine allows you to outrank it in this query, it will be affecting other query. It will be affecting other query. And eventually HubSpot will be dropping lots of places. And quality or user satisfaction on these topics for HubSpot, it can help it to rank for others too. For instance, one Gary Elias, he was explaining 22 different indexing signals in the Search of the Record podcast. And once he told that there is a hierarchy for these 22 signals. Even if you configure these a little bit differently, you will mess up lots of things.
Yes,
so that's why
I could imagine it's just because kind of starting from just kind of removing one website, but then it's kind of affecting a lot of other search queries. And then, one more time, you have to reset up all the scripts and you have to actually adjust everything just because it's kind of ruining the logic, right?
And
if you don't really priority
that's
one
why
more time.
that's why when you actually want to outrank the HubSpot, you should be able to tell the search engine that, look, even if you risk your other users in other topics, I worked for that because my website is also a little bit ranking for these. You will be able to balance actually your cost for understanding, for ranking, and also your users still will be safe with us as well. If you're able to prove your value to the search engine, of course, they will rank you there. But if you try some artificial ways there, again, eventually they will, an algorithm. That's why actually in my CV too, or small biography, I use the concept of baby algorithm. Because again, according to the Gary Elias, I am not a big fan of the Google spokespersons, by the way, but there are some of the first-hand resources for SEO. So that's why I mentioned them. And basically, he was talking about the millions of baby algorithms. It means that one decision of one algorithm can be canceled by another. And they are talking to each other for different type of combinations of conditions to be able to construct a search engine result page. And in this case, actually, even if you're able to convince some of the baby algorithms, the other ones can actually prefer your competitor. And that's why understanding all of them in a complex way is important. So you are frozen, but I'm not sure whether you are here or not yet. Alex? Maybe I am disconnected. I am just imagining. I guess I am not.
Yeah, okay, you're back. Thanks, God. Because I was like so scared because I couldn't kind of go with your kind of, your explanation because I've never been actually doing that and reading this.
Yeah, you can even see that actually I am even more red now. Well, it's okay. So basically, I explain actually some of these baby algorithms when you are not here. But for this specific query, I can tell that getting the featured snippet will be easier because it's not about getting the first ranking spot there. In my experience, usually, if you are in the first page, and especially if you are ranking in the first 6 positions, it is very much easier for you to actually trigger a featured snippet for yourself. And in this case, rather than trying to actually outrank every competitor one by one, you can try to actually create or trigger your own featured snippet for this specific query. And to be able to do that, there are some certain ways. For instance, in my opinion, I will definitely write actually the word step to the beginning of every sentence there. And if you use the word how to, most of the time I use instructions for all these sections one by one. If you want, maybe I can also present my screen to explain these things maybe a little bit more visual. Let me check.
Yeah, okay. But can we do it really quickly because we are a little bit behind the time, but everything is really, really exciting. Well, I think please feel free to share your screen, definitely.
Okay, if I can just try maybe in this area entire screen, it will be in this part. So maybe you see my screen now.
Yeah, we could.
Okay, if I can take us in this area. So in this section, for instance, I will not use this step 1, step 2 type of sections. There is a numeric value in this area already. Another thing that I will do is actually I will try to understand when this HubSpot actually appears directly in this part and when it doesn't appear. There should usually, or sometimes at least, you can find some alternatives to the HubSpot in this part. It seems like there is not a second one yet even. The second thing that I will do here is I will put actually my main answer directly to the higher position. For instance, here we have them, but usually, at least in the research papers and my experience too, if you have a clickable link, whether it goes to another page, whether it stays in the same page, the search engine will need to clean the links in this area to be able to actually create these things on the SERP. And most of the time, I try to actually give one of these without also links as well. One more thing is the granularity of the steps here. If we compare it to our competitor, in this case, let's say the HubSpot, we can realize that actually they have more steps than I do, which means that actually there are a little bit more contextual phrases that they can use actually for the SEO. Another thing that I will try to use in this part, actually, I am giving a quick text analysis or text processing methodology here quickly. I will actually try to see how many times the word SEO appears together with actually some of the nouns in this word, in this area. I would not use the keywords here because it's easy, but at the same time, put keywords is one of the fundamental phrases here that they always use. It might be because the keyword is to let's say the close semantically in a graph for this area to be able to understand that you can actually choose, let's say, about amount of the results here, or also you can tell the search engine that remove any page here that mentions the word keyword. And you can see that actually most of the expert sources already gone in this part, which means that by trying this type of configurations, it will be easier for you to actually create a structure here. And I will definitely use lots of qualifiers or context qualifiers here. At home might be coming from a different context, because when you have a how to question, or how to learn question, by the way, you can choose something else. It might be Spanish too. And most of these qualifiers or for beginners, they are coming from other query connections. I will try to choose, rather than choosing more relevant phrases to the how to learn, I will try to focus on the SEO section more in that area as well. If these things are hard for you, sometimes you can use, let's say, infra-nodes a little bit. I don't use this tool, by the way.
This looks beautiful.
It looks beautiful, but it is also dangerous for people. First of all, I am not affiliated with this tool anyway. I am just giving a random sample because in my opinion and mindset, sorry for my cat.
No worries.
In my opinion, Sherlock, shut up. Sorry. In my opinion, most of the time, people actually understand the things that they can see, and people get feared from the things that they can see. And this tool here, it might be a little bit more helpful for you to imagine things a little bit. And when I search for how to learn SEO, there are a certain type of graphs here, and we see a certain type of words. Step is not important for you here. It's coming from HubSpot. That's why it is here. You should skip it. And you can create certain type of co-occurrences to go beyond these type of sections. But this thing in this area, a little bit, let's say, it might be helpful, but definitely I will use actually a learn SEO exact match domain together with a proper content, and I will open sub pages, not just SEO, but technical SEO, local SEO, or others too, and I will link back directly there as well. Now I am trying to stop my screen since you say that we don't have that much time.
Oh, well, the last question, Koray, where can people learn more about, topical authority, right?
Okay.
Okay. We will share this after podcast as well.
Okay. So for topical authority, the main problem with the concept is, to be honest, when I was in an interview with the Matt Diggity, and I really like him as a friend, and we became friends after all these hurricanes, to be honest, at least from my point of view. And on that interview, I am strictly instructed to keep everything simple as much as possible. And that's why I used a phrase, topical map, which is different thing from graphs or other things. And then when I use the concept of topical authority, in my case, the title, it started to become like a buzz term because there are lots of articles about it, lots of other things like imitating articles, and they usually don't go that deep too. They just do deep freeze marketing. Deep freeze marketing means that you get a term from the deep freezed area, then you put a new emballage or new cover and you give it to the people. So topical authority is not something like that. It's a real thing and very different. So that's why I would suggest you to actually read, especially the case studies that I have written. You can find them on OnCrawl, even Jet Octopus, Holistic SEO Digital. And I will definitely suggest you to read the SEObythesea.com. There are more than 2,000 articles here, and I have read it like around 7 years. The website doesn't end. So try to go with more concrete sections there. And one more thing is we created actually a course for Topical Authority. It is on the Topical Digital. And we have a private community around the course. And right now, over 1,000 people learn together and they share these ideas with each other too. And in the course, there are things that you won't be able to see in other articles too, because topical authority or semantic SEO is not just about putting related keywords together or writing anything about a topic. You have to give order and also momentum to do these things.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Koray, for being with us. Thank you very much for sharing so many ways, right, of how you can approach, I would say, SEO, right, which is very important, right, and looking at things from a different perspective. From a business standpoint, right, which is extremely important nowadays, because just ranking by some particular keywords most probably not really the main goal of everything, right? So the goal is actually to grow your business, and SEO is just among the tools, right, among the channels that you can use. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you.